a body bag, bend beat bumps, a chime from a grandfather clock, made of pine wood with walnut studs, a pearly red unfinished sleigh bed of carbon fiber. One can only guess to fly higher and faster from being lighter. Pieces of liquor bottle shards crunch the top, squeaky floorboards, screens on walls, flashing on and off weather report. Killington, Vermont, Whistler, Snow King Resort, Black Diamond conditions, travel restricted and closed off. A shipment of hummingbird broth was lost because he couldn't get across. Mrs. Claus had a psychotic blow off, and that's why we were called.
The opening scene of COVID Santa sets the tone with an eerie, desolate atmosphere. The drone's cold lens captures the chilling isolation, a metaphor for the pandemic era where humanity is distanced not only physically but emotionally. Time becomes a powerful symbol in Canibus's COVID Santa. The grandfather clock, representing both tradition and decay, chimes against the backdrop of an unfinished sleigh bed, an allegory for how the pandemic left so many plans and dreams incomplete. Santa's once mythical flight is grounded, weighed down by a world in disrepair. Shattered glass, squeaky floorboards, these are fragments of a broken world. Canibus uses these subtle auditory and visual cues to evoke the disintegration of normalcy, as though the very foundation of reality is unstable under our feet, much like the pandemic itself. In COVID Santa, even nature seems to conspire against us. The weather reports speak of harsh conditions, metaphorically representing the restrictions and closures that have crippled global travel and industries. Resorts once synonymous with escape are now off-limits, much like our lives during the pandemic. Canibus gives us a twisted image of Mrs. Claus, once a symbol of comfort, now the face of a mental breakdown. Her psychosis and rumoured fentanyl addiction mirror the mental health crises that have escalated during COVID-19. The mouldy cookies and sour milk surrounding her represent a world that has decayed in isolation. In a surreal twist, the Elves, once industrious workers, have transformed into ravers, partying in the shadow of their former workplace. Canibus uses this imagery to critique how, under the pressure of a collapsing system, the once loyal workers are now turning to chaos and hedonism, abandoning their roles in a world gone mad. Canibus paints a dark and dismal picture of the Christmas myth unraveling. Rudolph, once a glowing symbol of hope, now crippled by illness, a clear parallel to how COVID has affected even the most resilient among us. Santa, bedridden, symbolizes the global leaders and icons who are helpless in the face of an unseen enemy, their empires crumbling under the weight of the pandemic. In COVID Santa, Canibus delivers a shocking revelation. Santa, the symbol of joy and generosity, is no longer human. His body has been ravaged by unknown biopollutants, much like the viral mutations that have caused global panic. Santa's genomic integrity is compromised, a chilling metaphor for the fragility of our world and its susceptibility to unseen dangers. Canibus takes us deeper into the nightmare. Santa's condition is a sanitary disaster, echoing the medical collapses we've witnessed globally. The frantic dialogue about operating mirrors the chaos in real-world hospitals, overwhelmed and underprepared, fighting an invisible enemy with makeshift resources. Even Santa, once invincible, is not spared. And now, Christmas is fucked, Canibus declares. This isn't just about a holiday, it's a metaphor for the death of tradition, the collapse of the old world. The pandemic has torn apart the structures we took for granted, and COVID Santa asks us what's left when the most beloved myths like Santa Claus have died. Canibus leaves us with a final haunting question. One that speaks not just to the death of Santa, but to the loss of faith in the world we thought was permanent. COVID Santa reflects the collective grief, the loss of certainty, and the harsh realities of a world that may never return to what it once was.